Good morning. Today is January 24th, and this is the second budget meeting. I'll call the meeting to order. Are there any regrets, Madam Clerk?
There are no regrets.
Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. We have no consent items. We have no confidential consent items, and so we are right into discussion items. And I see staff are ready, willing, and set to go. So I think Director Clark, you are first up. Is that correct? All right. Well, we eagerly await your presentation. Thanks very much.
Okay. Does it automatically come up? Who am I looking at? How do I?
It's coming.
Thank you. Okay, I am pleased to start today's presentations with an overview of the Office of the Chief Administrative Officer's budget. This area of the budget includes two main areas: the Administrative Executive Leadership section, which includes the Office of the CAO, as well as the 4 commissioners, and the Strategy, Policy, and Communications Department, which looks to advance corporate priorities, engage the community, and enhance the customer experience. We are starting off with the smallest of the budgets today. We represent 2% of the gross budget. I did want to note the difference between the gross and net are just some revenues and transfers that we receive into this area. When we look at Council's strategic areas of focus, this shows where these areas, how they support these. I will get into a little bit more detail on examples of how exactly we support Council's key areas of focus. So I mentioned that this area is responsible for advancing corporate priorities, engaging the community, and enhancing the customer experience. And we do that in partnership with our departments, and much of our work involves either overall direction setting or startup efforts in support of council and administration priorities. So a few highlights from last year I would like to point out. One is the Citizen Satisfaction Survey. Results showed that we have a very high level of satisfaction in our programs and services, which translates into satisfaction with the local government. A few stats to share: 93% of residents were satisfied with our services, 80% satisfied with their local government, and 85% of residents feel that they get good value for their tax dollars. I'd like to flag the rebuild of Oakville.ca. We've been eagerly anticipating that. That will have a new look and feel, improve content, navigation, and search, and we've done a tremendous amount of work building that over this past year. I'd like to flag the work on government relations and our advocacy priorities. This is a new focus for us. We did identify 21 key priorities of the town with regard to other levels of government and prepared supporting positions on each of those. We've been actively working on the development of our multi-year action plan for inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. We focused on improved council communications. In particular, I would like to highlight the creation of the council portal, as well as the monthly CAO updates. The Digital Oakville plan, which highlighted the work being done across the organization in online services, partnerships and data management, digital infrastructure, and continuous improvement. And you will certainly be hearing more about these examples in the commissioner presentations to follow. And finally, I wanted to talk about the reports that we presented on climate action. And they included our progress against the key areas of mitigation, adaptation, the natural environment, and foundation supports, our town-led priority projects and the community energy strategy, as well as support on climate resiliency. And in particular on climate action, I would like to note that these reports really are showing the consolidated progress that the town is making. Similar to digital, we use an embedded model for our climate action work here at the town. And so that means The work is being done across the organization and is integrated in our day-to-day work. It's not an overlay, it's not an extra, it's how we approach our jobs. So to give a few examples, it starts with the town's commitment to sustainable development in the official plan. And that's through growth nodes, requirements for mixed-use developments as an example. It continues through our built form with our active transportation network, our flood mitigation projects, and the electrification of our transit fleet. In our day-to-day operations, we support the climate action agenda through our building automation systems, our asset management programs that have a climate overlay, as well as our procurement considerations. All of it is embedded in how we support the organization's commitment to climate action. And you will definitely be hearing more about this in the commissioner presentations to follow. So moving forward on some key program outcomes, there are two that I would like to focus on today, two areas. So one is I want to acknowledge that we do continue to see a downward trend in the number of calls answered within 30 seconds at our Service Oakville call center. Some of you may recall last year that I spoke about increased call complexity as simple functions get shifted to our online channels. The more complex calls are going into the call center. However, 2022 did see, like many organizations, some challenges on the staffing side. So we were short-staffed the entire year, multiple positions. I am pleased to say that we are fully staffed now, and I have directed the team to focus on this performance measure going forward to get a better handle on it. So we are confident that we're going to see an improvement in that. For climate action, I'll translate some of these results. So our long-term goal is to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. And to help track our progress, we've established some interim goals. For greenhouse gas emissions, our interim goal is a 30% reduction by 2024. Our preliminary 2022 results show a 13.6% reduction. And for corporate energy, we set an interim goal of a 20% reduction in overall energy consumption by 2024, and our preliminary results show a 15.4% reduction. Some of you may recall that last year we were exceeding this target, and there's two reasons for the change. One is the pandemic. The restrictions imposed most certainly reduced our energy use and our output. But more importantly, you may recall in September, we changed our baseline number. So we moved from a 2014 baseline to a 2015. 2015 being seen as the more appropriate baseline because it was the first year after the last of the coal-fired gas plants were shut down. So we were benefiting from a provincial decision in our numbers. So that has done a reset of our performance measure, but you will be hearing, particularly in Commissioner Bell's presentation, some additional work that will be occurring that's going to support our movement towards this outcome. Moving forward to 2023, I would like to highlight a few things. Our team will be working with the Mayor and Council on the development of a new strategic plan. So focus is on both the long-term direction and priorities for the town, along with a 4-year action plan for this term of council. Work will be completed by June of this year and will then feed directly into the 2024 budget process. A draft inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility multi-year plan will be presented to council at the end of the first quarter. We will follow that with additional public consultation on that plan, and we expect the final plan to return to council for approval by the end of the second quarter. We will be launching our new oakville.ca website. I believe we are now 8 weeks in the countdown, so in early spring, we'll be launching that. And we'll have continued work on climate action with a particular focus on foundational supports, one of which is the adoption of the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure, which is a global methodology that's been used that allows us to track our progress against others, as well as provides a tool for us to help determine what our roadmap should be going forward, where we can get the most gains in our decisions. We are also doing a feasibility study for district energy in the hospital district. And we're doing resiliency work on standard operating procedures to ensure they are focused on the efficient use of natural resources, waste reduction, and environmental protection. And I will be referencing a few other items in the capital section. This slide shows the proportion of the budget between the two areas. And this shows the year-over-year impact on the tax levy. So the increase for strategy, policy, and communications includes both inflation and adjustments to personnel services and benefits, as well as staffing needs to support the areas of website development, corporate strategy, and graphic design. I will note that the issues facing the town do continue to grow and are becoming more and more complex. And understanding and responding to those issues and communicating our actions clearly are critical success factors. For the administrative executive leadership budget, those increases are primarily due to personnel services and benefits adjustments, as well as additional funding and professional fees in support of executive leadership work. So moving forward to capital, again, we are 2% of the overall capital budget. Some specific areas that I would like to highlight is a bundle of customer experience improvements under the Service Oakville banner. So this includes the remaining work associated with the launch of our new Oakville.ca, the development of a single identity solution, and improvements to the online component of Service Oakville that will provide greater transparency for our residents in tracking their service complaints and allowing for more self-serve options. We are going to begin implementation on a data management plan and the creation of an enterprise approach to data. And just to give some context for that, with more digital service and digital infrastructure being implemented, how we create, protect, use, manage, and share our data takes on a critical importance. So in partnership with our IT solutions department, the focus this year is on developing the architecture for our data, how we manage our data, and the creation of standards that will be used across the corporation. I did mention climate action earlier. This funding is specific to the development of a home energy retrofit business case. And I did want to note we will be applying for grants for that, so we do expect that cost to not be at that high. And we also have some funding earmarked for Future Energy Oakville. The last thing I'll note is the Downtown Cultural Hub refresh. That is part of this area's budget. However, Commissioner Garby will be speaking to that as part of his presentation. So that concludes my piece, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Adams?
Thank you for the presentation. Can you give further details about the FEO funding and how that relates to the preparation of a review of the relationship between FEO, the town, and others?
So we have I believe it was a 4-year commitment to provide startup funding for FEO. And this installment is $50,000. That's the final agreed installment for FEO. The expectation is that organization will also do some fundraising and get some additional money to support their ongoing business. With regard to the home energy retrofit program, So that is a partnership with Oakville Enterprise Corporation, the town, and FEO. OEC will be leading the development of the program, but FEO would have an oversight function for that program. That's how it's envisioned. We are still working through the details on that.
So we're supposed to get a report back in sometime in the next 6 weeks or something, I think, right? I'm looking at Jane.
So there is a request for a workshop with
Yeah.
council. I think that's what you're referring to. Yes, we are still working with OEC on the details of that, so you will be hearing something on that shortly.
Okay, and but that part of that is to cover the discussion about the relationship between FEO and the town and the partners?
Yeah.
Okay, and so this funding, I can't remember exactly how this is meant to be used compared to any other project funding, this 50,000?
So this
Or is
funding.
this meant to be like operating funding?
It's meant to be operating. It was to help them hire an executive director, for example, some of their staffing needs to
Right.
get them going.
Okay, so I just wonder whether this payment is going to go automatically to them prior to us having discussions about what projects they're going to undertake or how they're going to undertake them.
Do you want to answer?
I was just going to add, there's two reports, actually, I think I know we're bringing back to you. One is, as Julia said, on the retrofit program and the workshop that council had asked for. The second report is, we do an annual report to renew the service agreement that we have with FEO. And so we'll be bringing a report on that, which I think will get into what you're asking about, is that relationship, the accountabilities with the FEO and the town in terms of conveying the annual funding that we've indicated that we'll be giving to them. So you'll see two reports coming forward on that.
When is that second report coming back?
I think March is the time frame for the agreement, so it'll be within that time frame.
So it'll be close to the same timing as the workshop that we're expecting to see?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thanks very much for that clarification. I'll give that some thought.
Thank you. Councillor O'Meara?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just have a couple questions about the strategic plan. So that's going to be, did I hear you say that will be finalized by June of this year?
By
and then go right into the 2020? So theoretically, we're losing a year of our council term in order to get the strategic plan happening. Can you tell me why that is? We don't have a lot of time in a 4-year term, and usually in the last year, we lose about half a year as well on that. So really, we're looking at about a 2.5 year sort of execution of a strategic plan here. I'm not sure. Can you maybe just elaborate a little bit on what you're envisioning for that and what value you think we're going to be able to do in about a 2.5 year term?
So I added a slide after this was posted. It is very high level, but I did want to just speak to the timeline a little bit on that. So yes, the short answer is 2023. There's not a lot of opportunity to bring that in. So there's 4 key components of the strategic plan work. We are just getting that launched now. There is a fair amount of public consultation involved in that. I'm not exactly getting to your question yet, but the 6-month period allows us to have a best practice review, public consultation, both in person, live interaction, as well as a survey component, workshops with council, figuring out where we want to go, the royal we, where we want to go on that, as well as the final plan. So the 6-month time frame is fairly aggressive to get it, but we are confident that we will have that done by June. And then, of course, it feeds right into our budget kickoff and proposal development. So 2023 is a continuation of the current focus areas, key areas of focus that are already established. But you are correct that it's the 2024 budget. And the reason for that is, as the priorities come out of the strat plan, the new strategic plan, staff will then have the opportunity to assess, the costs associated with it, the options of how we're going to deliver it. So that due diligence around the next steps and how to approach, that all happens in the 2023 year.
Okay, because it is certainly different from what we've done in the past. I mean, we've had an afternoon workshop with an external consultant who's come in and spoken with councillors really right after their election to hear what were you hearing at the door, what are the priorities in your areas, how do we fold that into buckets, and then that's how the strategic plan goes. So I guess, are we revamping the way that we're doing this entire process then?
This was a look at a new strategic plan, not a tweak or a refresh. So an opportunity to step back and assess the long-term direction for council, as well as that 4-year action plan. So it wasn't intended just to be a continuation of the existing.
Okay.
I think
Through you, Chair Hasselfield, I just wanted to add that if the strategic plan does not substantially change, because I do think it's quite a number of years or quite a number of terms that you've kept with a similar strategic plan, our objective was to look a little bit longer term, set out some longer term objectives, perhaps in that 2057 visioning component, and then look at the action plans in the short time. But if the plan does not change much, you have the opportunity of this year already, because if it stays very much similar, then you're already undertaking a lot of the projects. Not only that, each time there is an election, we have always spilled over into the following year. So you actually pick up that extra year in the next term as you go along. But you're quite right. It gives a shorter amount of time. It is a little bit longer, I would say a month or two longer than in previous terms, but that would be the extent of it, if that helps at all.
Yeah, it does. I appreciate that. And just, I guess that sort of preempts my question about the $200,000 for a strategic plan, which is quite substantive from what we've done well, I shouldn't say from what we've done in the past. I've only been around since 2014, but I guess, so that's going to entail external consultations, public engagement, like a whole variety of outreach then?
yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Just further to that, is it fair to say then, if there are initiatives that are important that someone may see as coming out of a new strategic plan, if they're anxious or see it as a more urgent need, they should be raising that at the budget level now, so that could be costed and considered against this tax levy?
Certainly, Chair, that would be the case. If you see those issues coming up, you could raise them as part of this budget session.
Okay, thanks very much. Councillor McNeese?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Could you talk maybe a little bit more about the engagement? I think you mentioned that it's external community engagement. I see on the timeline it's going February till May. I'm assuming councillors would have a role in trying to drum up engagement in our wards as well. Is there, with February just kind of being around the corner, is there a bit of a preview you could provide?
So the engagement consists of both some in-person opportunities, but it also includes a survey. I believe the sample size is 800 that we're looking to do. That's a random survey sampling. But there are a variety of in-person and virtual opportunities as well. So the engagement will include multiple different modes to get feedback.
Thank you. And just anything that's in person, I guess if we could have as much notice as possible so it can go in our newsletters, and sometimes it's challenging to get people out to talk about the future and stuff. So I think the more time we have, the better. So thank you.
Absolutely.
I just have a follow-up question. First of all, thank you for adding in some of that additional insight around climate change and climate action and embedding it into the different departments. I want to just focus on Service Oakville. So we talk a lot about trying to have a one-stop connection to then directing it and being able to track how, where our resources need to be applied to. And I'm going to make the leap that change in data management will also help us to some degree with that. And I'm pleased to hear that the vacancies are all filled. Can there be a KPI in this area that gives us a sense of volume and length of time to resolve issues? I think we all recognize there's different levels of complexity with the questions coming forward, but it is a benchmark to tell us, is how we're directing people to get resolution, are we applying the right resources, are we giving individuals the level of communication and support that they're looking for?
So yes, I have been speaking with the team about what measures we should be presenting that may be a little more meaningful, or measures in addition to start showing the story. So yes, we will take a look at those key program outcomes.
And after having a conversation with one of our individuals that is a little more senior, will we maintain a strong enough presence physically in the building or by phone for those that continue to maybe not prefer an online method?
So we do still have our Service Oakville counter, which remains open. And the call center is a fairly large portion of our business. So the data isn't there yet to warrant a shift in those channels at all at this time.
Thanks very much for that. Seeing no other questions from the committee, we're on to the next presentation. Thank you very much for your time, Director Clark. I believe Commissioner Sully is up next.
Does it just go into the next one? It's not moving. What do I have to do? It's not doing anything. Not sure why it's not moving. I don't need that. There is, oh, maybe the mouse? What do I have to do? I did, yeah. Oh, it's frozen. It's frozen. It's frozen, I think. Sorry about that. It seems to be frozen. How are we going to do her? I didn't touch it. Moving on its own. There we go. Okay, I think we're ready. Thank you. This morning I am pleased to present the budget for the Corporate Services Commission. Our commission has a role in the organization of strengthening, supporting, and protecting the organization. It's really three roles: authoritative, driven by legislation, partnering, and service provider. We have 5 departments in our commission, or 6 program areas that you would see in the budget document. And in addition to providing specific responsibilities in these various program areas of expertise, we support and facilitate program delivery throughout the organization. We represent 8% of the overall budget. Most of our program areas are administrative in nature, so there's very little revenue at 12% of the net operating budget. We primarily support accountable government. The exception there is Engaged Community, and that is our political governance program, which supports mayor and council, our council and committee meetings, etc. So I do want to highlight some of our 2022 accomplishments. It was a fairly busy year, and I think 2023 is going to prove to be just as busy. The first I wanted to highlight is the successful purchase of the Fogler lands. This has added extra parkland to the town in accordance with our parkland strategy. This past year, we also undertook a development charge and a community benefit charge background study, and we had new bylaws approved by council. At the time these bylaws were approved, I think I said, this enables us to maximize growth. Shortly after these were approved, of course, Bill 23 came on the scene. And so that is impacting the amount of funding that we're able to collect through these bylaws. We did report to council late last year on some of the preliminary impacts, and we will be coming back this year as we know more. The town's workforce is heavily unionized. We have 4 unions. This past year, our human resources team undertook a bargaining strategy in preparation for negotiations. We have 3 union contracts up for negotiation this year, and we successfully concluded the negotiations with Unifor for our transit employees last year. We also worked with OEC on their partnership arrangement with Enbridge. Our legal services team provided a lot of work and consultation with OEC, and we were able to bring forward the recommendation for council consideration and ultimately their approval. And this past year, we opened a service counter for IT technology. This provides a one-stop shop for people to come and meet their technology needs in a easy, simple fashion. And I'm pleased to highlight that, again, we had a clean audit opinion. This continues our track record of clean audit opinions. And we offer timely and relevant training for our staff. This year, we focused on our Emerging Leaders program, as well as training in diversity and inclusion and in coaching. And while we would like to think COVID is behind us, we also continued to track the financial impact of COVID on our organization, and this allowed us to leverage funding from the province as it came available, particularly in our transit area. These are some of our program outcomes. I won't go into too much detail on them. You can find them in the business plans. So the past 2 slides were on our 2022 accomplishments. I'd now like to highlight a few of the initiatives that we have underway or planned for 2023. The first is the town land acquisition and disposition strategy. This will be led by our legal services program and will encompass a consolidated and targeted collection of real estate and facility data as part of a broader portfolio strategy to better manage the town's realty holdings. Our goal is to maximize optimization of the existing town land and to review potential purchase of new properties consistent with the portfolio strategy. Having a portfolio strategy, along with a targeted and consolidated database, will allow the town to more efficiently plan and manage our realty assets. And last year, the region undertook a vacant home tax study. The town has participated in this initiative. Phase 1 was reported to Regional Council last year, and authorization was given to proceed with Phase 2. Phase 2 is underway right now. There was community engagement late last year, and they're currently developing the design and implementation of the study. That work is expected to go back to Regional Council later this year. While we've been very heavily involved in that work to date, we do anticipate, should Regional Council approve this program and ultimately our council, it will require additional staffing resources to support that program. The report that went to Regional Council last year indicated that the number of staff required would be dictated or predicated on the way the model is delivered, whether it's hybrid or whether it's the actual local municipalities delivering it. So I will touch on that a little bit more further in my presentation. We also are going to undertake a lean review in our purchasing area this year, as well as the update of the purchasing bylaw. As the town grows, the demand on our purchasing section has increased significantly. To ensure our processes are as efficient and effective as possible, we will undertake a lean review, and we'll be looking at all of our processes, looking for ways to eliminate unnecessary steps, to create a more streamlined approach to it. This is going to feed into the update of the bylaw. We had hoped to undertake that work this past year, or we weren't able to. But I think having the lean review done first and then moving into the bylaw update will serve us well. We will be looking as part of that bylaw update, of course, to always balance the risk, ensuring that we're complying with legislation, but also looking for ways to maximize our opportunities, to leverage buying opportunities through other partners, and to make the process as efficient and supportive for our departments as we possibly can. The other item I want to highlight is our cybersecurity strategy. I think everyone has seen the news of incidents recently, most recently with hospitals, certainly with municipalities and with businesses. This is a high priority for our ITS department, and certainly a lot of emphasis and focus is going into how we can secure our systems and technology. This year, we will be seeking third-party expert advice to develop a comprehensive strategy to mitigate our IT security risk. And I have Bill 23 on here. I'm sure that's not a surprise to anyone. We will be looking, as we get more information from the province, on the impacts. The province has indicated that they will be undertaking audits prior to initiating any funding to make us whole. I anticipate this will involve our finance team as we participate in that process. We're certainly more than willing to work with them on that, and we will be reporting back to council as we know more and as we understand the impacts and how it will impact us going forward over the longer term. On recruitment, I think Julie mentioned the difficulty she had this year in Service Oakville with filling our positions. We, like many other municipalities, are feeling the effect of the tight labor market. We've seen higher turnover this past year than we had in the more distant past. The increasingly competitive job market, the higher turnover, it's taking us longer to fill our positions. It's requiring us to repost positions, which takes more time out for HR and also for the departments as they have to go through all the submissions and then through all the work of reposting. So that is creating some operating difficulties within our departments. To address this, we have moved from a passive recruitment approach to a more planned, proactive approach. We've taken some immediate steps. We've increased our complement in HR to support recruitment. We're using greater use of social media, such as LinkedIn, recruiter licenses, things like that. But we're also continuing to work on a longer-term measures, including the development of our employer brand, employee value proposition, in addition to reviewing our compensation and benefit plans to ensure that we remain competitive and can attract the best candidates. Later this year, we anticipate going live with our new tax software. Our current software is at the end of its useful life. We have, over the past year, successfully negotiated a contract with a company. We're now in the process of our implementation, and I do expect that to go live in the third quarter. I am also very happy to say that there will be self-serve options with this software. So I think that's something that our residents certainly have been requesting for some time, and I'm very pleased that this will help support our digital strategy going forward. Our Office 365 project continues this year with Phase 2. We will be launching it for council and the mayor and council staff later this month into next month, and then for all staff across the town by the end of the second quarter. Our capital budget also includes funding for a telephone modernization project. This project will leverage Microsoft Teams to meet our telephone needs for most staff in the organization, and it will allow us to, for the end-of-life telephone assets to be retired without their replacement. With our hybrid work environment, the transition will allow staff to take their phone extension with them no matter where they go. And as I mentioned earlier, we will be bargaining with 3 of our unions this year. This will be led by our HR department. We have outside legal counsel and representatives from departments across the organization to ensure that the organization's needs are represented in the negotiations. The final item I wanted to highlight is bylaw consolidation. And I know this has been raised by council and certainly by the public. the difficulty that they have in accessing our bylaws. Our current system stores over 16,500 bylaws. If they've been amended, it makes it very difficult to ensure that you've got the most up-to-date and current bylaw. Last year, staff in all of our departments worked on consolidating our most frequently used bylaws. We consolidated over 30 of them. This is an interim measure. We also put out an RFP last year for consulting services to help us conduct a review and an approach to move forward on this. As you can imagine, it is a huge project. Unfortunately, we got no bidders on that RFP. So we are now going back out to the market with a revised RFP, and we are hoping that we attract some bidders this year. As well, there's an additional position in our clerk's department budget, a legislative projects court advisor, who will assist us with the ongoing strategies, initiatives, and legislative responsibilities that require significant coordination, and a key part of that will be managing our bylaw system. So this slide just shows our gross and net operating budgets by program area. As you can see, our largest program is ITS, followed by financial services, political governance, and human resources. Most of our program areas have increased at or slightly below inflation. Our program budgets provide the staffing to support the town and maintain our existing service levels. As the town grows, there's been increased pressure on our corporate services to ensure the level of support required by the organization is maintained. Similar to when you add staff for new parks and roads when they're added to the town, as the town grows, there's increased demand on administrative support from our commission. And this is requiring additional support in order to meet the organization's needs. We've held back as long as we can, but we do find ourselves at a tipping point. And nowhere is there impact more seen than in our purchasing section, along with human resources and clerks. And so staffing has been adjusted in these areas. The budget that was presented by John includes positions in these areas to support the organization. This will ensure that we can provide the support and regulatory oversight required to protect the town and allow us to deliver our programs and services to meet the needs of our residents. We do have one new service request for Council's consideration. It is not currently included in the budget that was presented to you, but we have identified it based on the increasing workload in our tax section, and to ensure we have resources available as new policies and programs are developed and implemented. This would include the work on the vacant home tax. There's been a considerable amount of input from our tax team on that vacant home tax. That will continue. Ultimately, if the program is adopted, the revenues from the program would fund any staffing required to support it. However, in the interim, Council could consider using stabilization funding to allow us to hire the person ahead of time in order to have that work underway and to ensure a smooth transition. So that concludes my comments on our operating budget. I just have a couple of projects on capital to highlight. We are a very small portion of the capital budget at just 4%. Of that, 97% of our capital is in the ITS department. So the first is our hardware and software replacement. The bulk of our capital requests are for infrastructure renewal in this area to ensure that we meet our compliance and life cycle standards. The other program I wanted to highlight for Council is our enterprise payment program. This is a multi-year initiative. The objective is to standardize our town payment services, processes, tools, and technologies on a single electronic platform. It will provide better payment experience for our customers. It'll also allow us to simplify and better manage the back office processes to support the organization. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. A call on Councillor Elgar first.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Nancy, thanks for the presentation. I heard you mention you'll be coming back later this year regarding the DC impacts. And I'm just wondering, when do you think you'll be coming back with that information?
Right now, it's hard to say. I have in my mind in the spring, but we really are waiting on the province. We're waiting to hear on some of the final requirements, that some of the details we just don't have yet. We have done analysis. We continue to do analysis on the impact. We're tracking the impacts we're feeling right now from the phase-in of the rates, et cetera. And we're looking at longer term, what are the things where we may see impacts going forward. So it's difficult to say, but I would anticipate in the spring.
So we won't have any more information until after the budget for 2023 is approved, that is what you're saying?
Likely not. I don't think it will impact us necessarily in 2023. We are looking at all of our capital projects. John's team is preparing a report that will come to Budget Committee, looking at the criteria we'll be using to assess our projects, which ones are at most risk. But we have looked at our 2023, and I don't see any impacts on 2023. I think you'll see them longer term. As the revenue decreases over time, you'll start to see those impacts, and we'll have to look at which projects would be at risk.
Yeah,
So we will be bringing that report back to you.
Yeah, I saw the Premier quote it right after he said, we'll make you whole. He said, municipalities don't have a revenue problem, they have a spending problem. And that kind of scares me. But with regard to the ITS customer service, what are the hours of operation? I've heard, the only reason I say that, I've had a few comments that you can't get a hold of anybody on the weekend.
Through you, Chair Haslett-Thiel, we are ramping up the hours of service there. We, right now, I think it's open until 9 o'clock during the week. We are implementing weekend service. We expect to have that by the end of the first quarter.
Okay, I appreciate that. With regard to consolidation of bylaws, is there no one in Canada that has done that, and we can learn from that of how to do it properly? Like, there must be a municipality somewhere that has gone through this that could help us move a little faster in that area, I would hope, and not the pitfalls that you run into. You start something brand new.
I see Vicki shaking her head no. Would you like to speak to it, Vicki?
Through you, Chair. We've done a review of other municipalities who've taken a look at what they've got on their website, and most of them are doing similar to what we have right now. It's not really a system-driven consolidation. So we've been basically manually converting our bylaws into a consolidated product and making them accessible for the website. So we're hoping that there is a solution, and part of what we're hoping that the consultant will do is help us find the best solution that's out there.
Okay, I appreciate that, because I mean, somebody has to have done it and found some shortcuts, I would hope, because what you're telling me, it's extremely manual right now.
It
Wow.
is, yeah.
Oh, good luck on that. Okay, that's actually all the questions I have on it. Just the revenue taxation coordinator, when you mentioned you need 7, you need that person. Is there any surplus in that area where we don't have to hire another person, but we could kind of put the responsibilities over to someone else as we get more mechanized?
Certainly, we have looked for efficiencies, certainly with our online payments and that. For many years, our tax section has stayed at the same complement. The town has grown considerably over the past many years. That's more ratepayers, more properties, more questions, more inquiries. The support as these programs come on, energy retrofit, if there was to be a heritage tag, all these things add more work to our tax section. So they are at the tipping point. We have done a lot of analysis looking for opportunities for efficiencies. We've consolidated our revenue operations in there to make it more streamlined, but there is no more capacity.
So this is just another example of where growth doesn't pay for itself, where we have to keep adding administration. Perfect. I thank you.
Councillor Adams?
Thanks. I have a couple questions. So on that finance position, what's the timing expectation for it in terms of funding it? So if we were funding it we would eventually recoup the cost through the regional program?
Through
That's
the
the
vacant home
expectation?
tax. Yes, we would. So when we come back with that vacant home tax, assuming it gets approved, we would be identifying the staffing resources, and the intent of that program is that the funding from the tax would pay for any positions that the municipalities need to support it, and the residual then goes to support the region's home programs.
And would that position also support anything else in the interim?
They would be working on tax policy. We have several areas where we're reviewing it. There'll be a current value assessment coming up. There's a lot of work on the plate that this person would also be working on.
So we could consider whether we wanted to fund it through stabilization or through a tax increase on the interim and then reverse it in a future year.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's one option that we could consider. Moving to a different area, I have a quick question about the capital budget on the IT side. In the various projects that are being supported, one of them is the Spears Road project. And I'm curious, what's the IT component of the Spears Road project?
That will be the fiber.
Oh, that's laid into the
Laid in the
road.
road.
Okay. And then the other area I wanted to talk to you about was the legal fund. We've had over the years, we're always involved in some kind of process, and so that obviously we need to have a legal fund. But we've also, I think, over the last 10 to 15 years, had a number of really significant legal issues that have used significant funds for various projects that have been supported by the community. Could we get without naming projects specifically or issues that we've been dealing with, could we get an idea of the annual spend on legal fees that are coming out of that fund, and whether the funding allotment that we're providing right now is sufficient over the course of 10 to 15 years to cover the kind of expenses that we're seeing?
Certainly, we can provide that. We do budget an annual amount for corporate litigation.
Yeah.
But then the practice has always been that if we go over that amount, we use tax stabilization, but certainly we'll report back.
Yeah, so my question is, I think it's $500,000 that we're funding right now. Question, should that number be a different number? Should it be 600, 700, whatever the number might be? But it appears to me we haven't changed that number in quite some time, and I fear that we are underfunding it.
Okay, we'll report back on that.
Okay, that's it, thanks.
Councillor Liszczyna.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Nancy. Thank you for the presentation. I'm interested a little bit more if you can comment on the purchasing aspect of this, of the lean review. I know I've asked the questions in the past about using economy of scale and working with other partners, and you did mention leveraging buying with other partners. Currently, is the town the majority of the purchasing with other partners, or are we on the lower end of that? And obviously with inflation and pandemic sort of repercussions, all of the pricing has really gone up. But maybe if you could just in general comment what the lean review means. Is it departmental, commissions-based, full town? That'd be great.
Through you, Chair Hassett-Thiel, it is a lean review of the process. So the buying process from start to finish, all the steps in there, the approval process, everything that you need to do from the start of initiating an RFP right through to awarding a contract. So we'll be looking at the entire process, looking at are there steps in there we don't need? Are there steps, everything. So we will be looking at all of that. It won't get into, I don't think, we're just now starting to flesh out what the lean review will look like. We had our first meeting on it yesterday. I don't think it will get into the use of partnerships. That will be part of the bylaw update. We do leverage our Halton Region Buying Group. We leverage any other opportunity we can, but we do want to ensure that we're maximizing those resources to make a more efficient process.
Chair Hassett-Thiel, if I could just add to that, the GTHA CAOs have been looking at improvements to the overall procurement processes, And I know Nancy's team and Jonathan have been working with a working group in order to look at advancing greater opportunities through Supply Ontario. So there seems to be some other opportunities there in terms of expanding our partnerships on procurement. So we'll be exploring those further through 23.
Thank you. Councillor Chisholm.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question going back to the vacant home tax. This might be a little bit early question. However, I'd like to ask, because it seems to be tied into the FTE with respect to the vacant home tax. Through your analysis, Nancy, have we any indication what the revenue projections would be if this program is approved as first year, second year, third year, knowing our analysis of vacant homes or properties within the municipality? Do we have any idea what I'm suggesting is I'm hoping we get to a point where the revenues outpace the cost of the FTE in its first year or second year. So could you comment on that, please?
Through you, Chair Haslett, there was a report to Regional Council, and regional staff are overseeing this project. We're participating. The expectation when they did the preliminary review in phase 1 was, I think they said 900 vacant homes. The expectation was that the revenue would exceed the costs and therefore support our housing strategy. So the expectation is, yes, the revenue would exceed whatever costs are required to support the program.
Thank you, Nancy.
Seeing no other questions. Nancy, I have a couple follow-ups. In terms of it's called a master accommodation plan. Is that covered in your section or is that covered by another commissioner?
That will be covered by Commissioner Bell.
Okay, thank you. And the HR headcount that's going to be taken for funded through tax stabilization, is that temporary in order to address the need that you've identified, or will it be permanent FTE?
There is one permanent FTE in the base budget. The other resources are temporary. They're funded from stabilization. And the expectation is, as we're coming out of COVID and the backlog on different things, this will get us past that. And then the funding would come out next year.
Okay, thank you for that. And further to Councillor Elgar's question around DCs, there's a chart that shows the DCs and the debt financing. Can we get that brought back to us at the next meeting? Just sort of a summary of to refresh us on what are the DCs? What have we debt financed in the DCs? What is the trend line on DCs? And including in that the number of approved projects and any DCs or CBC or as little as it'll be parkland cash in lieu dollars. Is that possible to get at the next?
Certainly, we can bring that back.
Okay, thanks very much. Seeing no other questions, thank you very much. Councillor Adams?
Can I go back to our previous discussions about the FEO before we go to the next presentation? While we're switching over, I wonder if I
Absolutely.
could we ask staff if they could come back with information about the current financial situation of the FEO? I understand that they're supposed to keep books as part of their agreement with us, and I wonder whether whether they've spent all the money that we've sent them. Where are they exactly on that? And because I suspect that they're not quite meeting some of the expectations that we had in our service agreement with them. And so I'd like to get a better understanding of where they stand on that. Thanks.
So I'm going to look over at staff. Who's got that ball and who's going to bring it forward at the next meeting? Julie? Okay, thanks very much. Thank you, Councillor Adams. Commissioner Fu, you're up. We look forward to it.
Great. Good morning, everyone. The Community Infrastructure Commission mandate is to provide safe, sustainable transportation, stormwater, and natural infrastructure for the town of Oakville. Within the commission, there are 5 program areas spanning across 4 departments, which includes Oakville Transit, Wilson Works, Transportation Engineering, and Corporate Asset Management. Our programs generally oversee the planning, construction, operations, and maintenance, and the direct service delivery to customers within our road right-of-way, along with a corporate asset management function to develop policies, procedures, and practices, and guide the management of all the town's infrastructure in an efficient and a sustainable way. The Community Infrastructure Commission represents 24% of town's overall gross operating budget and 27% of the net operating budget. Approximately 96% of the community infrastructure operating budget and 78% of the capital budget supports council's strategic goal to improve mobility. As the primary objective of the infrastructure planning, infrastructure maintenance, and the transit programs are to promote safe and efficient movement of people and goods throughout the town. The corporate asset management program supports various accountable government initiatives by continuing to develop the town's strategic asset management plan to meet legislation, as well as promote overall asset management stewardship across all town programs. The $16.2 million in environmental capital initiative represent projects to transform the town's transit fleet to electric, as well as various stormwater and creek erosion works. To highlight some of our 2022 accomplishments, under livability, we completed the 2022 loose leaf enhancement that included areas and roadways adjacent to major woodlots and expanded service areas that meet increasing canopy growth and leaf volume. We collected approximately 2,000 loads of leaves, a marked increase from about 1,400 loads of leaves from 2021. Customers can now enjoy free access to the internet while taking our Oakville Transit. Under engaged community, Oakville Transit has been piloting right-on-demand transit service in North and Southeast Oakville since October. Staff engaged the community through a survey in Ward 3, 7, and existing home-to-hub customers to understand the transit travel needs of residents prior to initiating the pilot. The pilot will help staff develop the future on-demand program that will further enhance mobility to our residents. We met the Regulation 288 requirements and updated our corporate asset management plan for core assets that includes the transportation network services and the stormwater network services. The comprehensive asset management strategy, policy, and plans are key to the sustainability and the overall long-term management of the $3.6 billion worth of infrastructure that balances service level, risk, and cost in a financial prudent manner. Under the environment focus area, one of our biggest projects is the electrification of the transit fleet. There are many steps in the multi-year program to purchase, install, and maintain new electric infrastructure to charge and operate battery electric buses. The first battery electric buses began arriving in the town this month and will be used specifically for caravan specialized services. Staff are currently working to finalize the procurement of the energy infrastructure to support the new electric bus fleet. A report has been prepared for today with a January 30th, 2023 council meeting report attached as an appendix, which I will go into a little bit more detail later on in my presentation. Under the focus area of mobility, we're very happy with the below grade separation, which was awarded and pre-construction work is well underway. Under the Neighborhood Traffic Safety Program, the traffic calming component was revamped with a systematic petition review process, including updates to our website to enhance customer service. Staff will be providing an update on statistics and the result of the new process from the stages of the resident petition to resident surveys to speed surveys, and will review opportunities for enhancement to the traffic calming program during our annual report coming to you in the first quarter. We also continue to enhance mobility across the town by adding 19 pedestrian crossovers to the town street network. We now have a total of 49 pedestrian crossovers as of 2022 implemented. For the key program outcome, this slide shows the asset renewal ratio, percent conditions, and useful life ratios are 3 different lenses to look at our infrastructure state of good repair and should be considered together. For example, if there's a high number of assets in poor condition and low number meeting expected useful life, this will indicate an increase in the investment renewal funding will be required. Currently, we have 89% of the asset in good and fair condition, while 74% of the asset meeting the expected useful life and asset renewal ratio within 75 to 100% range indicates the town is investing an appropriate amount of funding to support the infrastructure in an overall good state of repair. The COVID-19 pandemic had and still is having a significant impact on transit services. Staff are taking a measured approach to returning transit service levels based on transit demands throughout the network. Transit ridership on the system has steadily increased to approximately 70% only in the last quarter of 2022, compared to pre-pandemic levels, which is similar to what other GTHA transit agencies are experiencing. Our Roads and Work Department continue to provide excellent operations and maintenance activities with minimal deficiencies and generally achieving all service levels requirements for winter maintenance. Development application process under development services has improved in 2022, along with improved customer service through the online centralized portal called DEPA, Development Engineering Permit Applications. There will be, however, expected impact to this area of work due to Bill 23. Regarding active transportation and recreational trail this year, we have regrouped the various KPIs into one for the entire town. There are a number of departments involved in the construction, the maintenance of these assets. Active transportation infrastructure includes sidewalks and multi-use trails in the town right-of-way, while outside of the right-of-way, there are recreational trails. This KPI also now includes kilometers constructed through town's capital works and through the development. There are individual program area KPIs that shows a portion of this total, which you will see in Commissioner Bell's presentation, specifically highlighting recreational trails as part of her KPI. The Community Infrastructure Commission has a number of exciting key initiatives in 2023, and I would like to highlight a few. Midtown implementation will be a main focus, with hiring a consultant consortium to complete the various required engineering studies to move Midtown forward. Under accountable government, we'll be gathering further understanding to Bill 23, and we will be evaluating the impact to our permit system. A key initiative will be the development of the town-wide rainwater management strategy that will include our stormwater assets from pipes, swales, culverts, outfalls, shorelines, harbor, and riverines. The strategy will utilize studies that has been completed, such as stormwater master plan, environmental assessments, and riverine studies. This strategy will evaluate level of service relative to risk of flooding and prioritize capital improvements to maximize flood protection. We will be reporting to Council in 2023 with a summary of requirements and proceed to develop the financial strategy as a next step. Under mobility, the Transportation Master Plan will be initiated in 2023 and will be a multi-year study that will include all forms of travel. It will be a long-range planning document that will guide Oakville in decision-making and financial investment to enhance mobility across the town. A fulsome community engagement strategy will be included, starting with public engagement for the urban mobility and transportation strategy. Staff will be coming to Council in Q1 of 2023, presenting the overall study approach and public engagement strategy, so stay tuned. We are very excited to welcome our first batch of specialized electric buses in 2023, which will be operated as part of the Oakville Transit Caravan home-to-hub, and on-demand services. Staff are planning to initiate implementation of electrification infrastructure at the Oakville Transit Bus Garage in 2023 to support the transition from diesel buses to battery electric buses. The total Community Infrastructure Commission's gross operating budget is $94.9 million, with the largest program being Oakville Transit and infrastructure maintenance mark up over 87% of the overall budget. The net impact of the commission on the tax levy is $65.3 million after external revenue and recoveries are factored. Transit represents the largest portion, with a 2023 net operating budget of $33.2 million, followed by infrastructure maintenance with $26.1 million. Approximately 88% of the development service program is recovered through fees for service. However, it should be noted that due to legislative changes related to Bill 23, this cost recovery ratio has decreased from 90% in 2022. Transit and infrastructure maintenance also have had significant revenue and recoveries that help to offset net impact on the budget. Overall, the Community Infrastructure Commission budget has increased by $6.4 million over the 2022 budget, which represents an 11% increase. Major components of the increase include inflationary increase in fuel, contract services, and higher equipment. In addition, long-term asset renewal analysis indicate that the adjustment to the transfer to the equipment reserve will be required to account for the rising costs in vehicles over the past few years. Transit represents the largest impact with a budget of $33.2 million. This includes $900,000 in capital and growth impact, primarily due to the introduction of the 2 new specialized battery electric buses. As part of the 2023 budget, average ridership of 65% for the whole year, compared to the pre-pandemic level, is used for the budgeted transit revenue of approximately $6 million. It should also be noted that the 2023 transit fare are increasing and expected to increase revenue by approximately $50,000. $3.2 million in tax stabilization reserve funding has been budgeted corporately as an interim measure to help offset COVID transit revenue impacts. However, should the ridership increase over the 65% of 2019 levels in the assumption, transit would not require the full $3.2 million in tax stabilization. As a result of lower than anticipated transit ridership and revenues between 2020 and 2022, the town has received Safe Restart funding from the provincial and federal governments. We continue to seek additional support to transit and is currently applying for up to an additional $1.76 million for 2022, and will be requesting funding support for 2023 as well to help minimize the reliance on the tax stabilization reserve. Looking into the future, staff anticipate ridership to reach 85% of 2019 levels by 2025. Within the next 3 years, we plan to identify the new normal for transit services and will have a mitigating strategy to eliminate our dependency on the corporate tax stabilization. We have a number of new service requests that are currently not included in the 2023 budget for council consideration. Our current service level related to sidewalk boulevard snow clearing is 1 pass in the width of typical sidewalk width of 1.5 meters. In commercial retail areas where enhanced boulevard has been built, there is a desire to clear the snow between the road and the parking area and the sidewalk. In between, there are typically features of EV charging stations, bicycle stands, and benches. Under the current service level, the area between the road parking and the walk area will be encircled with snow during the winter season. This slide provides the cost to Budget Committee for consideration, which will improve mobility for users interacting between the lay-by parking area and the boulevard features. First, consideration is to continue the enhanced sidewalk clearing winter service for downtown BIA area that have been piloted in the 2020 and 2021 season. In February 2020, Council advised through the Lakeshore Road construction update that enhanced sidewalk winter control service would be provided on a pilot basis with no additional budget. The service cost for this enhanced service will be provided from the winter control reserve. The enhanced service will clear snow from the boulevard area between the sidewalk and the layback parking to improve access to these areas. The pilot was provided for the 2020 and 21 winter season to garner a full appreciation of the service and its benefits. The pilot has set the expectation for continuing this service level as it provides notable mobility benefit during the winter. To continue this service level, the operating budget for winter service operations need to be adjusted by $80,000. The second consideration is to provide the enhanced sidewalk boulevard snow clearing service within Kerr, Bronte, and Kerr and Bronte area to improve mobility at the amount of $110,000. The final consideration is for the provision of enhanced sidewalk clearing service to the certain identified commercial retail areas within Uptown Core, Palermo, and New North Oakville neighborhood areas at the amount of $84,000. The total winter maintenance enhanced boulevard clearing for council consideration is $274,800, which has an additional overall tax rate impact as shown on the slide. I will now move into the capital budget overview. The total 2023 capital budget for Community Infrastructure Commission is $75.8 million, of which 69% of $52 million is related to infrastructure planning program, which support growth and renewal of the town roads, bridges, storm, and active transportation infrastructure, as well as creek and shoreline improvements. Oakville Transit represents the second largest portion with $18 million, which include projects to transform fleet to electric buses, as well as various equipment and facility infrastructure repairs. The infrastructure maintenance budget includes $4.5 million to support ongoing replacement of vehicle, equipment, and traffic infrastructure, as well as minor roadway rehab works. I would like to note that the townwide capital budget map will be made available on the 2023 budget website in the coming days, which will help the public as well as council to see a visual representation of the 2023 capital budget for the entire town. Some of the 2023 capital budget highlights are Kelsa Gate, Bridge Road, York Street, and Wallace Road urbanization. These projects will take a number of years to complete, but once completed, will provide enhancement to streetscape, stormwater protection, and active transportation facilities. $8.3 million for the multi-year construction of Berlow grade separation. $9 million to support the ongoing road resurfacing and preservation program, and $10.5 million in various other infrastructure state of good repair, renewal, and replacements as a result of town's strong asset management planning practices. $10.7 million for the purchase of new conventional and specialized transit electric transit buses, and $4.2 million in stormwater and erosion control improvement, such as 16 Mile Creek outfall rehab, Rebecca Street slope rehab, Westminster Drive storm sewer replacement, and Dingle shoreline rehab. Regarding the request at the previous budget meeting, flood mitigation project, as mentioned earlier, the townwide rainwater management strategy will take the completed projects such as Stormwater Master Plan, Sheldon and Monk Creek flood mitigation studies, and further complete additional studies for the remaining riverines, such as Joshua, 14 Mile McCraney, and Lower Morrison, Lower Wedgwood study in 2023. And we will prioritize all of these studies and develop a long-term capital program along with a financing plan. This strategy, along with the 2023 stormwater and erosion control improvement project that you see in the slide before you, will address climate change adaptation and improve overall resiliency for our town. As a response to the request with the summary of all active transportation and recreational trail projects, this slide summarizes the various projects that has been included as part of the 2023 capital budget townwide. The first two grouping of the project will be delivered by Park and Open Space, where $2.8 million of new recreation trails are planned, along with close to $700,000 in pathway rehabilitation and trail accessibility program work. The remaining projects are delivered by the Infrastructure Planning Program area within the Transportation Engineering Department, where AT improvements are incorporated into our major capital projects such as 6th Line and Spear Road. There are also standalone AT projects for $2.4 million, with continuation of the improvement to the Crosstown Trail, providing a wider paved service, rest areas, pedestrian and cycling crossings to encourage and support year-round active transportation. In addition, with all of the various capital projects, there are also supporting programs for the overall ATMP program. The budget allocations for outreach, programming, and marketing annually. This includes activities such as Bike Month, Smart Commute, Bike to School Week. We were also asked to provide information regarding the Neighborhood Traffic Safety Program. There are 6 components under this program: traffic calming, pedestrian crossovers, community safety zones, automated speed enforcement, reduced default speed limit review, and Vision Zero. The budget for the 6th component are spread across a number of departments between roads and works, municipal enforcement, and transportation engineering, and are funded from both capital and operating budget. The total program cost for 2023 is $3 million, which includes operating budget for automated speed enforcement implementation, capital budget for traffic calming improvements, 10 pedestrian crossovers, 2 new pedestrian signals, 2 new full traffic signals, and traffic studies and monitoring. In addition to the 2023 budget requests, there are a number of in-progress initiatives from previous budgets for traffic calming, 20 pedestrian crossovers, a comprehensive traffic bylaw update, a review of the neighborhood 40 km/h speed limit pilot areas, communication and education, and funds to pilot new software to assess opportunity to improve safety for all road users. Staff will be coming to council with our annual update of neighborhood traffic safety program in Q1, which will include all the work that's completed to date and in 2022, and a detailed list of work plans for 2023. Another key report that will be coming back to council in 2023 will be the 40 km/h pilot in 3 areas of West River, Heritage Way, and Lakeshore Woods, which is planned to be concluded in Q3 of 2023. As part of today's meeting, there is a report that's attached. And the report is titled Transit Energy Infrastructure, Energy Services, and Facility Expansion. Oakville Transit requires supply and installation as well as the ongoing operation and maintenance of energy infrastructure prior to receiving the delivery of the conventional battery electric buses. The report is to fulfill the financial requirement of this project, while there will be a staff report going to council on January 30th explaining the detail of the contract. Through an RFP process, the implementation and operation of the energy infrastructure to charge the electric fleet will require the town to enter into long-term capital lease and long-term energy service agreements. The 20-year agreements will provide the ability to electrify approximately half of the fleet and future-proof the facility for full electrification of the fleet. To ensure longevity of the infrastructure, it is recommended that the facility expanded to store the equipment inside. In addition, it is efficient and cost-effective to expand the facility at the same time to provide additional bus lanes for future transit fleet for room to grow up to 2050. Given the timing of the preparation of the 2023 proposed budget, placeholders were added as staff were still negotiating the contract with the proponent. We are now in the position to amend the proposed 2023 capital forecast and operating impact as indicated on the slide. Further, staff will continue to seek opportunities for additional government grant and funding to help support the electrification of transit. That concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. First up is Councillor Elgar.
Thank you, through Madam Chair. At the very beginning, you had an asset renewal slide, and I thought we were in the like 74%, but then if I looked back about 4 years earlier, I saw 90-some%, and I'm trying, can you try to explain what happened between the 90% and this down and drop to 70%?
Through, can we pull up the slide 6? We just want to.
Just try to understand what I was reading.
It's on slide 6.
Good morning. Through you, Mr. Chair, or Mrs. Chair, sorry.
Close to the beginning.
I believe I know what you're speaking to, Councillor Elgar. I think it was in 2019, the number was a little bit higher, 97%.
A lot higher.
Yeah. It was reflecting a bit of an accounting exercise in how we reflect the roads. We used to account for the road base and surface as one asset, and then in 2019 we split them apart so that the surface and the base were separate assets. So that changed a little bit because there was a high number of assets sort of accounting-wise disposed. It made that number go higher. But we've kind of rebased it back down to the 70%. So
the 2019 is kind of an outlier. We shouldn't even look at that number then.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good because I thought, what happened here? So, okay, that explains that. Maybe we should just forget 2019 then, I think, going forward.
Yeah, we did think we could go back and try to amend it to take those outliers out, but it was a lot of assets, so it was kind of difficult to do that.
Well, I appreciate that because it just looked weird. Okay, thank you.
Sure. I should put a footnote for next year. Thank you.
We went to a slide where you talked about the annual public transit trips, and I noticed you put 9.12 estimate. Do we not have real-time data for like on a daily, monthly, weekly, annual basis instead of an estimate?
Through Madam Chair, we do have data that comes at the month end of every single month. At the time of the preparation of the budget book, the number at the end of 2022 was estimated at the time. We do have the as of year-end data, and we do also have the current data as well. So I can have Adrian speak to that.
So through you, Madam Chair. The year-end, was it the ridership per capita? It was slightly increased to, I believe, 9.41 by the year-end for 2022. As Commissioner Fu mentioned, we are still consolidating the year-end numbers for the entire system, and we are hoping to have them done by the end of this month. Thank you.
So are you seeing an increase in ridership starting in January of this year, based on where you were in 2022, going back to numbers similar to where it was before COVID hit?
So through you, Madam Chair, I actually took a look at some of the electric tap card information before this meeting, and I am noticing that we are starting to verge on possibly 75 to 85% of 2019 numbers. So they are much higher than the 2021, 22s, but we're not exceeding just yet, and we are looking to see what we are going to trend out over the first quarter of this year.
Interesting. I know that I just have to look at the parking lot at the GO train station and realize how many parking spaces there are compared to what there used to be. And I agree, it's probably, yeah, you're about 40% empty there still. So that kind of fits. Automated speed enforcement. We've purchased units. None are operational yet as far as I know. Can you give a little more details on where we're going with that and when we're going to flip the switch? And also, if we've got some kind of a way so we don't lose a lot of money on each one, or have we found a new system where we can actually make money?
Through you, Madam Chair, we have selected 14 locations for the automated speed enforcement. The equipment and all the signage is ready to go from an infrastructure perspective. At the last update to council, we indicated that we're waiting for agreements with the provincial government and the various agencies to ensure that we could set up our AM program, which we're also fairly ready. So right now, in terms of the timing, we're waiting for the agreements to come through from the different organizations. We currently haven't initiated any cost to us, so we're not losing any money. So once we turn on the system, some plans sometime later on this year, that's when the cost will be incurred, and that's when the tickets will be issued. So at this time, we're in a holding pattern. Staff have prepared all the necessary background work and ready to go, and waiting for the final agreements and the final details to come through the province.
So we don't know yet whether it's going to be a revenue generator or a revenue cost?
Through you, Madam Chair, in the 2023 budget, we have allocated the cost of approximately $1 million, and then the revenue was estimated for about 15,000 tickets. And then we have estimated about $100,000. I don't have the exact number. I could get that back to you for in terms of revenue loss, not a revenue generator. So it'll be a generally split even program around $100,000. However, we would like to experience it for a year, starting sometimes later on after the summer this year, to really adjust and understand the budget implications for the ASE program.
Okay. Now, moving forward to electric buses, you said we've got our first batch. Was that 18 buses, or how many do we have?
The first batch that we were hoping to unveil later on this month with a big party is 5 specialized buses. Our conventional buses will be placed onto an RFP for ordering, and that's it's not going to be coming in 2023. Our first set of buses is the 5 specialized buses.
So, for details, like, it shows that Oakville, we're trying to move ahead, and get into electrification out of the diesel and all the fumes and that. Like, could we have something we give out to the public? Here's why we're doing it. Here's what the cost is. Here's the savings. Like, because people, when it comes to transit, all I ever hear about is people emailing or calling and saying, why don't you just cancel the program and just use Uber? It'd be cheaper based on the empty bus I see going by. And like, we've got to promote why we have transit and why we need transit, and that the cost is, we've got to do a better, I just feel we have to do a better job of understanding why we have it, because everybody, they forget about the cost for the roads for the cars, but everybody can look at a bus. Either that or paint the buses so they all have heads on the windows. When you look at them, it looks like they're full all the time. Would help us a lot, I think. But I see $33.18 million is the operating cost. That's what I saw on the slide, correct?
That's true, Madam Chair, that's true, and thank you,
So
Council.
what the revenue for that is how much?
It's through Madam Chair, $6 million is the estimate. It's in the budget.
Okay, because people look at it and they can say, we're losing money here, how much am I contributing? And if you can come up with some system so we can do a better job of selling the reality of all of that, I'd really appreciate it.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm going to suggest that as we roll out the urban mobility and the urban transportation master plan, that may be the opportunity for us to enhance the communication on the importance of transit to our climate change objectives, to a lot of initiatives within the town. So we'll look at it through that context because that in consultation program will be rolling out this spring.
Well, I appreciate that, Jane, because it seems to be an issue that people, I guess maybe because of COVID, they're sitting looking out their windows, but it seems to be getting more complaints than ever about that type of thing. So I thank you. Anyway, that's all of my questions I have, and thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Elgar. Councillor Adams is next.
Thanks very much. Could staff provide a comparison of our transit fares with Mississauga, Burlington, and some of the other GTA transit providers, particularly with respect to the youth and the senior fare programs, where we've got various discounts for those subgroups? Okay. And then on the road quality forecast, we have historically had a chart showing the quality of our roads, the percentage that are deficient at various stages and so forth. Could we have a renewed version of that forecast, in part because we've gone through a period of high inflation for construction, and I wonder whether we are expecting to be able to maintain the quality of our roads given the funding allotment that we've got, because we've historically provided funding and then hoped that it would provide us the amount of resurfacing that we thought we needed. So, and then you mentioned the ATMP initiatives. Could we get further detail about the ATMP initiatives capital project that you've got?
Through Mr. Is it, I did provide the list and the slide. You will need additional details?
Yeah, so in project, the ATMP active transportation initiatives, that's got the 329,300.
Yes.
So it's, you named a couple of things within the detail page.
Yes.
But it's not broken down, it's not very specific.
I see.
Is there more detail that we can have in terms of what the 329 provides?
Through Mr. Chair, we could provide more detail, the breakdown of the
Yeah.
329
Yeah.
and what the program components are.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, just so we, if we're trying to explain to somebody, what are you getting for the 329, that we can give that detail, that's all.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay. And then there's a couple of multi-use pathway projects that I wanted to ask about. And so one is the Ninth Line one, which is broken up into 2 years. There's a small amount this year, and then it looks like the actual work happens in 2024. Can you tell me what's happening in 2023 versus 2024?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Adams. Yes, you're correct. The first year is the design funds, and then the second year we put in the implementation or construction funds.
Okay, so there has to be some redesign work. It's not simply a resurfacing, because I know it appears to me there's massive amounts of settling that have happened on that multi-use path.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, if there are issues that need to be addressed for safety, then we would work with our Roads and Works Department to do that this year. But the design work would actually guide the construction next year if there are improvements, widenings, that sort of thing. If we need to work around utilities, that's the kind of work we'll be doing this year with the funds that are in this year's budget.
Okay, and we, bit of an aside, but we probably need to make sure that vehicles aren't able to get up on the curb and park on the multi-use path, because I think that has contributed to some of the issues there.
Through you, Madam Chair, I can say that we've been looking at our design standards for multi-use trails as well in terms of the amount of asphalt, not to encourage vehicles to be parking on them, but some like our crosstown trail where we are working on having that available year-round and we do need to plow it. We're trying to make sure that the asphalt is appropriate depth and composition for the types of uses we will see on it, such as snowplows in the case of
So if there's heavier
crosstown
vehicles on them, that it doesn't destroy the trail.
But we certainly aren't encouraging the other vehicles to be using the other multi-use paths.
Yes, fair enough. Excellent. Okay, thank you very much. And then similarly, the upper middle road multi-use pathways, there are several segments that are defined. And I know that we got some capital funding partially through the federal government program to do the piece farther to the west, which kind of ends at Goldbriar Trail. And then there's maybe 3 different chunks, and I'm not actually sure what happens to the Golden Briar Trail to 8th Line segment, because the detailed project listing, the detailed sheet kind of doesn't describe that very well. Can you tell me what's happening to that? And is there any way of advancing that work? Because for many people, it feels like we've forgotten them, and there's been communication in the public about that project going all the way to Joshua Creek in the funding, which obviously is not the case.
Yeah.
And so we've got a gap there.
Through Councillor Adams, we can certainly put that information together. I think it would be good if we summarized that in a document that you could perhaps share with constituents through your newsletter or otherwise. That segment, that longer segment that we had communicated about last year and previously, there were some sections where it was simply, we were simply able to replace some sections where we were able to replace with some minor enhancement to widening. And then there are some gaps in there as well. So the program will be designed to reflect those different stages that we're at. The design for filling any gaps is obviously more complicated than just the repair replace work. So we will come back with a summary of that for you that you can share with constituents.
Great, thank you. And then the last thing I want to ask about in terms of the projects is we have a whole bunch of major projects for crossing the QEW, particularly around the Midtown. Is there any way that we could advance any of those? What would be required for us to advance those?
Through you, Councillor Haslethiel, Madam Chair Haslethiel. We are embarking on our Midtown implementation project that Planning and Development Committee approved back in July. The RFP for that work closes this week, and we expect it to get started in March. Concurrent with that, though, we are certainly looking at all of our projects and what we can do to advance them. We have some design funds in the budget already from last year that we're working on crossing the QEW with the Western Active Transportation crossing. We also have been working together with the region and with our internal Midtown team on looking at the Cross and Trafalgar intersection in particular, because that's a key one to the opening of Midtown. And also we have our class environmental assessment for the Chartwell grade separation, which provides another access, not over the QEW, but into Midtown from the south. In terms of accelerating the other projects, we are looking through that Midtown implementation project at what the network looks like and when the different components need to be done and how we can move those forward. So that's really a key part of that project.
Okay. Lots of work there. And then I have another question, which I'm not really sure if it's for you, it might be for another member of our team, but it has to do with the federal grant programs, and so I'm not really sure if it applies specifically to you guys or somebody else, but I understand that there was an active transportation fund for which we may have received $2 million, but for example, I understand Burlington got $4 million, for example, and I was told that it was simply because we didn't apply for as much money. Is that true? Is there a way of us checking on whether there are funds that we should be applying for more?
Well, we could certainly look into that and get back to you in terms of the grant available and what we apply for and was there opportunities for more.
Okay, and it simply, I don't know what the answer is there, so that's why I'm asking. So, and similarly, I understand there's a disaster mitigation and adaptation fund, and I wonder if there's opportunities there for grant funding of some sort.
Through Madam Chair, yes, we are looking at that. That was newly announced, so we will be taking an attempt to use our rainwater strategy and all the variety of stormwater projects to apply for the DMAP fund.
Okay, thank you very much. That's everything I have.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. I'm going to go to Councillor Mira next.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I have just a quick question about, just to stay on to the bus track, and I apologize, it might be better for Thursday, but Councillor Elgar touched on you know, what are we doing? And I think we talked about, and Jana mentioned in the urban mobility strategy and these things, but I think with the report that we have before us today is we're committed. We're 20 years, we're signing an agreement. We're not going anywhere with transit. I'm wondering if we don't need something in the capital budget to pursue a strategy about how is it what's best practice to get people to use public transit? And I'm not even talking about us. Maybe our generation is gone, and we keep on trying to flog a dead horse here, and maybe we should just be, letting that go. I read an interesting stat. In 1983, 50% of children who are 18 had their driver's license. In 2018, only 24% did. They're just not driving as much, and maybe we're focusing on the wrong demographic entirely, and we're chasing our tails. But is that something we should be looking at as urgently as possible so we can align what we're talking about 10 years and 20 years and the money we're spending? Is there something we should be doing like ASAP to look at how we try and target who's going to be using these buses, not this year, not next year, maybe not even in 5 years, but in 10 years, how do we get our modal split to finally crack the 4% mark?
Of course. Through Madam Chair, there's a number of facets that Transit is looking at, working with transportation engineering as well as planning. First off, within our transportation master plan that we're embarking this year, we're really looking at the urban mobility strategy, turning the triangle upside down and focus on the pedestrians and the transit users, really understanding what they need, what kind of infrastructure we need to provide, how do we promote and educate the variety of aspects of these other modes of transportation, encourage them to make that choice. So that's more of a policy lens, including a long-range planning from a facility and infrastructure sense. At the ground level, Adrian has started the on-demand pilot. Through our family of services, we will be using the on-demand pilot to really look at the opportunity for not the conventional buses that's whizzing by that might look empty, but really look at alternative of providing other type of ways to get on public transportation and get out of your cars. So the on-demand pilots really give us a lens of how do we provide services that's convenient, Uber-like, that's coupled with software that is you could plan your trip right before when you need it. Those are type technology improvements will also encourage probably the newer generation who's probably really used to using the Ubers and not checking transit schedules to get on a different type of service. That part of the service is something we'll be looking at in 2023 as an expansion into our family of services. Within our family of services, then, we will look at the way to provide efficient service where we can minimize the costs, hopefully the budget for transit, and increase the transit modal share. Lastly, of course, at an even higher level, we are going out for urban mobility strategy, as the CEO mentioned, for the consultation, marketing, and promotion is very important. But the number of growth nodes, the growth nodes that we're building for Midtown, the other areas, are really increasing to promote folks and people to get on buses and transit because we are not providing a wider road. We are not building more roads. We're not providing all the opportunities for auto. So from the policy of how we grow our communities, from providing microtransit, such as such Uber-like facilities, as well as our long-term planning is all the different facets that we've been tackling to hopefully get people back on transit. But I would like to highlight, to recognize in my presentation, we're still recovering from COVID. Compared to other municipalities, they are similar around the range of that 60-70%. So we, as a transit agency, among with all of our other colleagues, we are looking at other opportunities to get people back onto the transit to the original COVID levels, and to Councilor O'Meara's point, to go beyond that and look for other opportunities to get them off the auto mode and enhance our climate action.
Thank you, Commissioner. That was a great answer. It speaks to the comments I had last night as well. Every time we have a development application in a density and a growth node, the number one concern is, well, what about the cars? And we are missing the point, I think, with what we're trying to do here. And I read with, fanfare that makes my stomach turn in knots when we were losing $27 million a year to the operational costs for transit. Mississauga is looking at free transit for kids under 12. They've said this is the demographic we're going for because in 5 years from now, we want them to be using the buses. And they've just I often wonder, well, we're losing 27 million. Why don't we just lose 29 million or 30 and do something that's going to actually be transformative? Again, and it makes me sick that I say that, but we've got to do something, because like I said, we're committing by doing this and approving, if it gets approved, we're committing to this for 20 years. So I think we should do whatever we can to give it the best chance for success. So I thank you for that.
Thank you. Sorry, Manager, just like to add, we do offer a free transit for under 12. It was through our pilot program, and we were planning to continue that. We're actually going to be preparing a memo to council that we're continuing the program similar to others to promote the new generations to really take transit.
Perfect. Well, that's great news. And I just want to switch gears for a quick second, and please tell me if I've got the wrong commission, but if I had a question about development engineering permits, is that yourself?
Through Manager, it is under my commission, under transportation engineering.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, Commissioner Beebe. On the slide on page 92 in the budget book, it talks about the percentage of scope site plan applications processed within the prescribed time frame. What do you mean by process? Does that mean completed, or just we've taken them, we've reviewed them, we've given comments? What do we mean when we say processed?
Through Madam Chair, the application process are a number of stages, as you're aware. So once the application is submitted, we do provide comments within the time frame of 4 weeks to have comments. Sometimes the application will take another 2 months for them to resubmit. So the way that we track our KPI is to count as when the process has been processed by staff, comments been provided. Sometimes they require first submission, second submission, third submission. Sometimes require additional studies that was missing in the original submission. So we do track them that way. I do recognize that number of development applications for infill sometimes could take number of months, but it is a collaboration between staff as well as the developer and the applicant to ensure that it's processed in a timely basis.
So for those of us on the region, the police are very adamant on their clearance rate, right? And how many things are getting off the table, right? How many cases they've got off the table. Is there any way to track our clock on how quickly we have got things cleared? So we press go when it's in our hands, and then we press pause when it's out, and they might take however long, but when it comes back to us, we press go. And can we not track how long we've got an application until it is approved?
Through you, Chair Hasselthiel. With respect to scope site plans, we certainly could do that. However, under Bill 23, we are no longer offering that service. So I can say, though, outside of planning applications, we do look at how long it takes us to clear, say, cases through Salesforce for service Oakville inquiries and things like that. So that is not related to development services, but it is related to your point about knowing how long we have something with us and how long it takes us to clear it completely off the books.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I do apologize. I know Bill 23's got a lot of things coming at us here, but I dare say it wouldn't surprise you to if I said that I have heard many times that people who put in applications feel that there's a bit of shuffling of the papers because they need more time, and you know it can take a while sitting on someone's desk if somebody's on vacation. These things, and I know we've got processes, but it would be interesting to have that data. And I'm going to ask it for building services too, just to see how are we tracking the clearance and the approvals of them, not just are we proceeding under the timelines giving to us. And I don't know if we have those that methodology, that would be great to see as well.
Yeah, through Chair Hasselthiel, I can say that that's something we were looking at, also in terms of helping our applicants by improving the information that's on our website, so that, you know, in the hopes that we would be reducing the number of times that we would see resubmissions. But with the scope site plans are really limited to single lot developments, and so those are now going through a different process. So,
fair enough. Thank you very much, Director. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor O'Meara. Next up is Councillor McNeice.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions. I liked your answer as well on the innovation in transit that you're looking at, and I commend you on the on-demand service. Did I hear later this year we'll have results on that to know if it's something that's going to kind of help us get that cost curve down and efficiency up?
Yes, through Madam Chair. The on-demand pilot is currently ongoing. We are collecting data to middle of the year sometimes, and then we will prepare a full business case about how can we look at the full rollout in phases of on-demand for the whole town. So staff this year will be preparing a business plan on how we expand on-demand service beyond Ward 3 and 7, utilizing the data we collect through the pilot. So that is the plan for this year. That is hopefully will be integrated into our 2024 budget. And per my presentation, by 2025, we will reach a new normal, and our plan is to have a mitigated strategy where we will no longer require the support of the tax stabilization reserve.
Great. And I see a lot of, as I'm sure you do as well, innovation in the transit sector, and especially thinking ahead the next kind of 10, 20 years. You know, I could see transit being quite a bit different than it is now. You mentioned a few 20-year commitments for infrastructure. I believe it was related to the electric bus infrastructure. Is that correct?
Yeah, through Madam Chair, the report in front of you is related to the energy equipment that would need to be used to charge the buses that we're buying. Okay. So those 20-year commitment is for the company to come and first install that equipment in our Wycroft facility, and then to operate that equipment for 20 years. So it's for the leasing of that equipment is one of the agreement, and then the second agreement is the operation and maintenance. So if there's something wrong with the maintenance with the equipment, it's essentially our contractor will come in and fix that equipment, as our transit folks focusing on providing transit service, and they're not expertise in electrical equipment. So that's why this contract is purposeful. So it is a 20-year contract for operation and purchase and install of the equipment.
Okay, understood. I guess my question is, I mean, obviously we can't predict the future, but do we foresee transit being quite a bit different 20 years from now, where it might be more of this on-demand service or more of this kind of decentralized ride share, mode share? Just any thoughts on that? Like, are we sort of 100% in that all of our buses are, anyways, I'll just leave it at that, but.
Actually, through Madam Chair, we have thought about that quite a bit through our transportation master plan, along with Adrian, in terms of where the future of transit is going. Providing these infrastructure, it really helps with the electrification of the fleet. The fleet doesn't have to be all conventional. Right now, our primary fleet is conventional buses, 40-foot buses. As we see as transit evolve over into the future, we might be buying smaller fleet. Specialized buses, smaller cars, similar to Uber-like that you could imagine. And we really then promote that anytime, anywhere type of service. And that is something that potentially could be the future of transit. But having these electric equipment available set us up in terms of, from a climate action plan, promote resiliency. We could change our plan for purchase of fleet into something that is more suitable to the future of transit. So in addition, we have in our capital budget this year, initiation of a 5-year plan. Similar to a master plan that's long range, we like to prepare 5-year plans and then incremental annual plans. All of these 5-year plans will always look at the trends of transit, where's the future, looking at the future of mobility, as well as our service levels, of course, to ensure that we are always refreshing our thoughts every 5 years. So even though it's a 20-year plan, it doesn't preclude us to be nimble and flexible in terms of where the future mobility is moving towards.
Okay, so I hear there's sort of, there could be an adaptive reuse of this kind of commitment and equipment as well as trends and transit changes. Okay, good. Just on a different topic, in your slide deck, slide 11, I just wanted some clarification on, it's related to sidewalk clearing.
Oh, yes. Yes, service requests.
I don't know if you want to pull it up or not, but.
Would you like staff to pull that up, or?
Just so maybe other councillors know what we're talking about. I just wanted clarification. I see top line downtown Oakville 80,000, second line sidewalk clearance for Kerr, Bronte, and then downtown again for the BIA. I just wanted some clarity on the two downtowns there, or is that an error?
Yes.
Through you, Madam Chair. I do believe at this point that it is just a focused area. When we say downtown Oakville, that's more related to the lakeshore construction that took place, and downtown Bay Area is any additional areas that need to be looked at. So all of these, in terms of the BIAs, have been incorporated into this line item.
Sorry, I'm still a little confused. So the top one, 80,000, so that's outside of the BIA area, is that right, for downtown?
No, that is the lakeshore works, and that's the current existing. If there's anything else that is beyond the lakeshore construction project, that's the pilots we ran from 2020, 2021, 2021, and 2022, then this will be incorporated here in that 110,000.
So previously through, Madam Chair, previously through the Lakeshore project, which is only on Lakeshore Road, with the new streetscape, we did a pilot to remove the snow. It doesn't include the entire area of the BIA, which includes the side streets. The reason why we separated it is to demonstrate that the pilot that we have been continuing is only for Lakeshore Road, which is should be more specific, it's Lakeshore specific. While we believe that if we want to enhance that, provide that service through all the BIAs, the Lakeshore, downtown BIA is greater than just the Lakeshore Road stretch. So that's why it's grouped under the second line, where the Kerr, Bronte, and downtown BIAs are part of the request. So the new consideration for council is if we only continue the Lakeshore stretch where the new streetscape was provided, is 80,000. If we like to extend to the rest of the 3 BIA areas, that's not just limited to Lakeshore Road, will be an additional 110. And then if we want to extend to the Uptown Cores and Palermo, the other area that also have enhanced streetscape, that will be the 84,800.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Next up is Councillor Yee. Scott?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a couple of questions. So based on the question which Councillor McNeese asked, so is there any, for the new service would you to clarify that is only for commercial site works in North Oakville? The 86,000, 84,000.
Sorry, Councillor Shea, would you mind repeating your question?
That's a new service you mentioned just based on follow the Councillor McNeese question about those, clarify those
That's
cleaning,
right.
the
So,
sidewalk cleaning.
That's correct. So, through Madam Chair, is a new service. Right now, when we clear sidewalk, we have one pass. We only get the sidewalk clears at 1.5. And you'll notice that in areas where there's on-street parking allowed in these urban centers, people will have to then jump over, I'll say, the windrow of a pile of snow to get to the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So these additional service requests, which is not part of the current 2023 budget for council consideration, is to clear that pile of snow between the parking and the sidewalk. And it's only in selected urban areas that had the streetscape where between those locations is actually pavered, it's already has benches. So it's not anywhere that has on-street parking. It's only the places that are considered have an urban streetscape where people could park to go go to the shops, and then they could walk, hopefully not across a bank of snow, to the sidewalk and access the stores.
I see. Is that enough? That's I see the third item. That's 84,000. That's covered.
Correct.
Uptown and Palermo and North Oakville.
Correct. Correct. So it's selected areas in North Oakville and Palermo and Uptown. Yes, that has been calculated based on our experience of the pilot.
Okay. So my second question is about the transit. So I remember I asked a similar question when I do the orientation. So now our the service is a free ride for seniors on Monday, right? I remember, or Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Okay, so on every Tuesday, do you have any data about, so I believe your colleague already say that, so they do some research when we launch that program for free ride on Tuesday. So how about we calculate to compare with every day from Monday to Friday, off-peak free ride for seniors. So compare those two. So what the data can show, what's the impact and what's the cost, it will be increased or something like that.
Yes,
If we can have some pilot, like I like the Councillor Amria talk about the Mississauga will launch maybe the kids free ride under 12. So how about we can try to do similar, the kids as well, as pilot you said just now, and also about the senior one. We just use senior from Monday to Friday, off peak in the morning and in the afternoon for free ride to do some pilot study and to see if this is something more good options for our senior to encourage they use our transportation and they can social, they can gather and they can go to the grocery or library in the morning or in the afternoon. Is that okay?
So, Madam Chair, we'll have that analysis complete and report back.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Luciana, thank you for your patience. You're up next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Food, thank you so much for your presentation. I'm referring to the report in our agenda about from Oakville Transit dated January 17th. I guess what I'm, with respect to the 20-year energy infrastructure contract, which is obviously a major investment. And I'm just looking for assurances that for this RFP. So first of all, I'm assuming we have not chosen a company yet, or have we?
Through Madam Chair, we're in the finalization of the RFP process. The January 30th report will be the full details in terms of the RFP, and that's when we will, following that report and council, we will approve and proceed with the contract.
Okay, so I might be going slightly into the weeds, but obviously this is a major investment. And so I want assurances to know that for this RFP that staff have looked at other jurisdictions who are pretty, much more ahead of us and hopefully in the northern climate with respect to the type of work a company that's chosen has done and what were the key learnings from their failures and that kind of thing. So could you provide any assurances that all of these things have been looked at and are incorporated into the RFP?
Through Madam Chair, yes, we have. We hired a consultant actually to help us who's an expertise in this area. They review all the variety of contract that's out there, what are the experiences, and then prepare a full scope information package that went into the RFP that would ensure the success of this exercise and this project within the northern climate. So we are confident with what we have in front of you and proposed and evaluated. The proponent that we're currently working with to finalize the contract has also have other, also meet all the mandatory requirements, minimum requirements, and have experience in delivering similar contract in actually within the GTA.
Okay, thank you very much. And I look forward to the January 30th report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Luciana. Next up is Councillor Nanda.
Thank you through you, Madam Chair. Just had a quick question. Most of my questions were asked by council colleagues, so that's great. Quick question just on North Oakville, because it was built as a compact community and transit was something that was looked into to providing transit for residents. Just if you could give us an idea of any previous pilot projects you've done for transit in North Oakville, how successful they've actually been. We're doing the Ride on Demand program to see now, but just kind of providing an insight into how transit has worked well, as Councillor O'Meara was suggesting as well. How successful has this project been? Do we see it being successful, especially in compact communities like North Oakville? I think we see mostly that a lot of residents are still relying on vehicles. So I'm not sure how much transit use we are seeing up there. And how successful these projects will be, especially when we are putting funding into them. If you could provide any previous reports to us that would be helpful, or we're going to see this one, I guess you were saying later this year for the Ride on Demand.
Through Madam Chair, North Oakville was designed to, as Councillor Hernandez mentioned, a compact community to support overall transit usage. The urban mobility strategy that was presented to Council last year clearly indicate the linkages between land use and mobility. If you build a land use that doesn't promote use of transit, then people will go automatic cars. We recognize that currently North Oakville is new and people are still leaning towards cars. And we do recognize there are a number of issues related to cars in North Oakville through the compact community design. However, in the long term, similar to Councilor O'Meara's, it's in the future. We really need to look at the future. Once the entire community is built, once transit service is provided, it will drive people to get off their cars and get on that transit. Our role as transit providers provide the convenience of the service to ensure that people feel that it's easy for them to get on transit, to be accessible. Hence, the Ride on Demand is the first pilot we have piloted in North Oakville related to transit services. Previously, we haven't had transit pilots in North Oakville. This is our first, but I'm very pleased to say the information that we've been getting, Oakville is having a really good uptake in using on-demand transit. And once we have installed a software to be like Uber-like, instead of right now it's a bit manual right now, is that it will make it even more convenient. And over time, it's the matching of the frequency of that service and the availability of that service with the land use that we planned for the past 10 years and the next 10 years. So as North Oakville complete builds out, the transit will become a very viable and favorable choice over time. And that is the vision that we have for North Oakville. And we're hoping that on-demand transit will really be the initiation of pushing the young generations who may not want to have those 3-4 cars in front of their driveways to really hop on that transit and provide that convenience of that service.
And do we have data for current usage of transit up there?
So we do have data on the Ride on Demand that we have as to date. We certainly could provide that to you. We haven't concluded our pilot yet, though, so we want to give it another season or two to really see that finalized data. In terms of other data for transit, because there is currently no conventional buses going through the neighborhoods that we do not have data for. But that does not preclude that in the future we will look at conventional service in North Oakville as all the area built out. As right now there's pockets of built out, and so transit service really do require a certain minimums to meet that threshold to provide conventional buses. So we are looking at all the different opportunities to provide transit service in North Oakville, starting with Ride on Demand.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nanda. Councillor Adams is up again.
Thanks very much. There's been a lot of discussion about the snow clearing options and the new request there. I wondered if staff could provide a memo detailing that a little bit more for us so that we can consider it properly in terms of which segments are being talked about and what is the service level that's being described.
Definitely.
Thanks very much.
Councillor Elgar?
Thank you. Thanks very much. Looks like you're getting beaten up pretty good on transit. But on the issue of transit one more time, could you come back and tell us what the impact would be if, in fact, we offered free transit to all age group 0 to 18 years of age in Oakville on a trial? If we started it in even, I'm thinking May until the end of the year, and what the impact potentially would be on our budget for the 2023 year. I say that because with that parameter, you would have to be tracking the ridership in great detail to see if there has been a change also on an increase or decrease or what has happened. Like somehow we have to get people on the buses, and I can't think of a better way to do it than to get them high school, public school to some degree, but a lot of high school children. They're not children, I guess, at that age either, but I think if we could look at that and come back to staff. And I wouldn't want to spend any money on consultants. You know what they say about consultants? They're someone who borrows your watch to tell you the time. So I think you've probably got a better staff that would know the details than spending any money on a consultant to do an analysis for us. So if you could do that, I'd appreciate it. I thank you.
Yes, we will.
Thank you, Councillor Elgar. Councillor Adams, is your hand down now or back up again? Okay, thank you. All right. So I have... Oh, Mayor Burton, you're up.
Further to Councilor Elgar's request, I understood him, I support what I understood him to say, which is we'd like staff to, believe the two of us would like staff to be correct if we're wrong. We don't want it studied, we want a pilot launch, as you described, 0 to 18. I'm aware of another city doing that. And if I punch my microphone, maybe Councilor Lischina can hear me. I beg your pardon. So I support what Councilor Elgar was suggesting. I just want to clarify that I believe what he wants, and I know I want, is a full pilot to begin as soon as possible. We don't need a study. We want to do it. And because it's a one-time pilot, I think it's on our practice, our regular practice, that can come out of the tax stabilization fund, no problem according to our policy, so there should be no tax impact. I want to add, I know of a city that's doing this where they're making it free, but you have to use a Presto card to ride free, and that allows them to track the ridership. And I think the councillor and I would, and all of council would support that wrinkle so that we would get data, which would be very helpful to us to know what we're looking at. And I thank you for that opportunity to clarify that, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Burton. And just to add to that, what I heard, I'm just going to finish my thought and then I'll come to you, Councillor Adams. What I thought I heard Councillor Yeast talk to was about support for a seniors pilot. Just for clarity, are you suggesting just 0 to 18? Are you supportive of a seniors pilot? I just want to be clear with staff what we are asking them to come back with in terms of cost and actions. So I'll go to you, Mayor Burton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm also friendly to Councillor Shee's request to pilot for seniors. The situation has become that if you're a GO Train user, you have almost free transit already because of the province's incentives that have been brought in. And that leaves us in the funny situation where regular riders are riding almost free, and the ones we want to encourage to use it face they have discounted fares, they have discounted passes already, but we would like to explore, would there be uptake if the only barrier was that you had to have a Presto card so that we could count your ride? And so I would be open to making it for I don't want to lose the revenue that we get from the province for the regular riders, right? Because there's a revenue element that comes back to us from the province for those free rides that they mandate. So I think our staff could design a system that said, let's not lose what we've got on the regular riders that's coming back to us from the province, but let's open it up to the other infrequent users and see if we can encourage increased use. And I think that would give full shape and form to what Councillor O'Meara started us out on with earlier this morning, saying, you know, how can we build transit for the future, or transit ridership for the future? So have I caught everything?
So I'm going to look to Commissioner Fu.
Yeah.
Are you clear on what we're asking? And can you report back on that?
Yes, through Madam Chair, we will report back on the impact of a pilot for 0 to 18 and seniors for the year of 2023, or a year. We'll design a program for running a free fare pilot for 0 to 18 and senior, and report back on the budget impact and the implications.
So thank you for that. I'm going to turn now back to Councillor Adams. I believe you had a question.
Yeah, it's really more of a comment. I support what the discussion is here. My only issue is I really don't think it should be coming out of stabilization reserves. I don't think we've ever done a thing like this where we then don't make it permanent. And so really this funding should be coming out of taxes.
So when we understand what that cost is from the Commissioner, I guess we get to make that decision. Commissioner Sully.
Through you, Councillor Howsett-Therill, we could run the pilot and report back on the final year-end results, but it would flow through in the year-end position and the surplus. So we wouldn't necessarily have to fund it this year out of the tax levy, but we could pilot it, see what the revenue loss is, and whether it can be absorbed in our overall year-end position at the end of the year.
That sounds like a temporary thing where we end up eating the entire thing next year. So I think we would be in a better position taking part of the hit this year and part of the hit next year if we're going to do it. Otherwise, we're taking the whole thing in a single year.
We could look at that and report back. We'd have to estimate the amount of the revenue loss.
Oh, of course, we have to estimate that, and that's part of the discussion is what's our current revenue in that in those segments that we're talking about, right? So.
All right, so seeing no other hands up, several other questions. So I'm going to just stay on transit for a minute. So Ride on Demand, I'm glad you mentioned that the software is still not in place. Do you have an estimate of the time where we're at with getting that software? Because I do believe it's impacting the ridership on demand.
Through Madam Chair, the budget for the software is in the 2023 budget. So as soon as the budget is approved in February, we're hoping to award it and get it implemented so we could use it as part of the pilot to really experience using the software with Ward 3 and Ward 7.
Okay, but just for clarity, so is the software going to require customization, or is the software going to be easily put in place, because you're talking about reporting back mid-year on Ride on Demand? That's a limited amount of time to see if the software made a difference.
Through Madam Chair, the software is fairly easy to initiate, and will communicate out to the piloted areas, and so we'll have a few months. And of course, just to clarify, when we do come back on the Ride on Demand proposal to council, sometimes next year before the next round of budget, is going to still be based on an estimate based on the pilot results. So we'll probably run the pilot into the fall still to have further understanding for further refinements before we have a full-on phase-in of the on-demand business case.
Well, as I've communicated to the Ward 3 residents, this is an opportunity knocking to be able to get to downtown, to get out of Clearview and into the community centers. It has such tremendous potential. but its uptake is going to depend on enhanced marketing, the software, and helping parents encourage students to get on as well, rather than drive them to the community center. So thank you for the pilot and for continuing to pursue something great. I would like to comment about convenience, because when people talk, I think it's essential that we're having this urban mobility master plan, and the conversation today has been excellent. But when we had a grid system for transit, people could go across town with much greater ease. And I remember our former director of transit talking about how there was a real increase in ridership when we had a grid system, not a, I think we call it a spoke system now. And it is the convenience of not having to make continual transfers that does impact people's interest on hopping on the bus. So just as a comment, as we invest, a significant amount in urban mobility. I'm going to shift a little bit to automated speed enforcement. It's my understanding that other municipalities are able to operate their system not at a loss. What do we have to do to be able to make that happen for Oakville?
Through Madam Chair, the way that we have estimated the budget based on not having a real life experience is based on the assumption of how many tickets is issued as well as the value of the ticket. The value of the ticket is dependent on the speed, how many kilometers you're over, and it changes. So we did take an average number. We did consult with other municipalities as to how their revenue are generated and try to make the best estimate. We believe that it will be a revenue neutral program once we start to run and actually see the average number of tickets issued, understanding the amount of the ticket that's on each ticket, the amount of payment. So once the other municipality who have run the program for a year or two has reported back that it could be, it's not a revenue loss system and program, and we're confident that we'll have similar experience once we get started. As a conservative estimate for 2023, we do have a minor 100,000 or change in terms of the revenue loss, but once we start running the system with the experience of the number of tickets and the amount that's on tickets and the payment of the tickets, will help us better refine that budget into the future.
Okay, thank you for that. Hopefully that can come to fruition, because Mississauga is reporting that they're looking for a change in how they're doing their ticketing and how they're managing the administrative elements of it. I'm sure you're alert to that. Yes. And are looking into that because they're quite frustrated as well. Right. And want to make sure that the public understands currently the way it's structured. There is the potential of loss. It is not a moneymaker. It is a traffic calming strategy. And unfortunately, the way the administration of it works, it makes it difficult.
And through Madam Chair, staff is actively participating in a group of staff that actually runs ASEs, and then they are sharing experiences and they meet regularly to ensure that everyone's learning together and improving the system as we move forward.
Thanks very much for that. I'm going to shift to active transportation, and I appreciate Councillor Adams' pursuit of what would be in that ATMP. And I think together we've been asking lots of questions in past budgets about cycling lanes, et cetera. Can you just break, I understand the 329 is in large part about programming and education and encouragement, and that report will come to us to the Budget Committee. But can we also get a report that itemizes the bike lanes that will be developed are scheduled to be developed in this in 2023, and what would be projected for 2024? Can we break it out so we know what specific bike lanes have been built versus recreational trails?
Through Madam Chair, we could certainly do that. We do have the capital map that will be ready, and it's a 10-year program, and we'll break out a slice for the AT for the entire 10-year budget. And I just want to maybe I didn't explain it better earlier and apologize, is the ATMP, which is the Active Transportation Master Plan, provide the overall view of the variety of infrastructure that need to be improved over time. It's been incorporated into our 10-year capital program in segments, and then the $329,000 annually are focused towards programming such as Bike to School Week, Bike Month, pedestrian safety awareness, smart commute, and among other, I'll say, soft promotional type of program. The soft promotional program does complement the hard infrastructure work, and we're happy to give you a full picture in the report back of the 10-year program by segment and the segment that's been done, including the recreational trails, and as well as these, I'll say, the complementary promotional educational programs in a breakdown by component per Councillor Adams' request.
Thank you. I have one other question on roads and works trucks. The number of them that, are any of them now electric? And is there anything in the capital budget or forecast for electrification of roads and works trucks?
So through Madam Chair, currently there's no electric trucks that has been placed under roads and work. We are looking at an overall corporate EV strategy to look at the overall fleet. So aside from transit, which we hear a lot about, there will be a corporate EV strategy that will be developed in 2023 that will look at all the fleet, from not just roads and work trucks. It will be park and open space trucks, MES cars, inspectors' cars. We do have in the past budget the purchase of the first set of electric vehicles for building, and unfortunately due to the supply chain, we've been very difficult to source electric vehicles for the building inspectors. It's still on our books to pursue. We're going out for a second tender. We're going to try again to get bidders to supply us those cars. But to answer your question, there will be an overall EV strategy, and all the fleet will be considered under there.
Thank you. And on to traffic calming in terms of PXOs. So I believe your presentation talked about 12 PXOs this year. Can you just clarify for me, is there a list of how many remain on that long list of PXOs that we were working through last term? How many are outstanding, and how much of a dent have we put into that list?
Through Chair Haslett, so we have 49 PXOs that have been implemented through the pedestrian safety program since we got started. We did 19 last year, as Commissioner Fu mentioned. We have 20 that were awarded at the end of 2022 that are in progress. We have another 10 that will be delivered through this year's program. They're out for design, or just the design assignments about to be awarded for those. So by the end of this year, we expect to have another 30 that have been delivered through the pedestrian safety program. We also have a couple of pedestrian signals. Sometimes on that long list, we had 170 that were on that long list. Sometimes when we go out and do the review, we find that really they're better suited to a pedestrian signal than versus a PXO. So that's not reported in that 49, but that is work that we're doing. So we have two brand new ones that are in our process this year, and we have one PXO that will be converted to a full set of traffic signals. So that will lower our number overall, but it is a pedestrian signal driven by pedestrian needs. So we are still meeting the goals of our pedestrian safety program. Through our other capital projects, we are also looking at opportunities to add them. So they may not, they will get counted on our map ultimately, but they may not be seen as being part of the pedestrian safety program umbrella. And the Crosstown Trail project that was mentioned in Commissioner Fu's presentation is a good example of that. There are many points between Khalsa Gate and Ridge Landing where the Crosstown Trail crosses the road. we will be implementing pedestrian crossovers and pedestrian signals as appropriate at each of those trail crossings as well.
Thank you for that update. Very, very helpful. All right. I understand we need to move a motion to receive, but we also want to provide a comprehensive list of all the items that staff are going to report back on. So with the, Councillor O'Meara.
Happy to move that which you might need, the motion, and I don't know if staff want to speak to the list first, or everything we discussed just all encompassed in the motion, and is that what you're looking for?
So if I could ask for the committee's patience, if we could take a 10-minute recess, make sure that we have the list in its entirety, then we can move that motion with all the requests and make sure that it's as comprehensive as, because it was a fulsome discussion. I think everybody, we had a great discussion. So with that, we'll break for 10 minutes. It's 12:05 now, and come back for the motion and review of the information to come back from staff. Thank you. Kathy is going to read out the reports and issues that we are asking staff to report back on. So over to you, Kathy.
Okay, so we have that staff report back on the following. So in the future, they report back on additional measures to report on Service Oakville performance. Can council get an idea of the annual spend on the legal fees we are spending over the past 10 to 15 years? Current financial statement of the FEO. Report back on a summary of the use of DC funds and growth projects. Provide a comparison of transit fares as compared to other transit providers in the GTA, specifically with respect to seniors and youth. Provide further details on the ATMP active transportation initiatives, breakdown on components and amounts. Report back on the quality of roads, including pavement index. Report back on details for the Upper Middle Road Pathways Project. Report back on the active transportation funding grants. Provide a memo on the snow clearing options being considered with location in detail, and a description of service levels. And what would be the impact on for a pilot-free transit from 0 to 18 in seniors, and the impact on the 2023 budget. Report back on bike lanes for 2023 and 2024, and the breakdown lanes from recreational trails. And the last one, summarize dollars currently planned to come out of the tax stabilization.
Thank you, Kathy. Is there anything missing that others, that we may have missed? Mayor Burton.
Thank you. My recollection is that when we were talking about FEO, we didn't just want a financial statement. We wanted a report on their performance against their service contract. There was a little bit more to that discussion.
So we can add that. Okay, we will make that change. Any other, Councillor Adams?
Sorry, and just on the road quality, it was a forecast chart, to be specific. It's not just where are we today, it's where are we going over the next 10 years. Staff have in the past provided that kind of forecast, so I just wanted to make sure that that's what's coming back.
So would you like us to reread it out, or are you comfortable with just add that?
Maybe the word forecast could be included in the terminology, just so staff know what they're looking for. I'm pretty sure they know what they're looking for, but yeah.
Catherine's waving at the back. She's got it. Okay. Any other edits, amendments, questions that we didn't put on the table at this point? Seeing none, I have a motion from Sean to accept, to receive the presentations today and the list of the issues identified or reports. All those in favor? Perfect, that passes. Thank you very much for all your hard.
We have the transit too.
Oh, sorry. We have, on 5.2, I need a motion to moves that the proposed 2023 capital budget and forecast for the project capital lease for charging infrastructure be amended to budget 4.2 million in 2023 and 45 million over 2023 to 2032, funded from the capital reserve for the energy infrastructure contract, the EIC capital lease payments. Mayor Burton? Okay. Do I need to continue to read the rest out? Everybody got a copy of it? All right, I'm going to read it out just so the public's not surprised. That the 2024 and 2032 operating impacts for the capital project for the capital lease for charging infrastructure be amended to add 2.6 million in 2024 and to adjust the remaining years from 2025 to 2032 to reflect the negotiated operating costs for energy services agreement, and that the 2023 capital budget be amended to add a new capital project for the transit facility expansion to support the charging infrastructure needs in the amount of 18 million funded through debt. So, Mayor's moving it. All those in favor? Carried. So we have no confidential discussion items, and I just, as a reminder, we are back at 9:30 on Thursday. Thank you to the staff for all your work behind the scenes and for your presentations today, and to the excellent discussion from the committee. We are adjourned.